everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Devil's Advocate Trades Edition with your host, Lisa McGrath. That's me. Today, I have an amazing guest. So it started off with me going down this little rabbit hole of the good grief authors. But the cool thing is as I go through some of these authors, I'm finding out more really cool things about them as people. So today with me is Jessica Sudin, and she is a corporate keynote speaker, a best-selling author, motorsports engineer and mindset coach for drivers and riders, resilience and empathy architect. Love that. Executive leader and leadership consultant. And she also like motorbike races like as a hobby. Like, how cool are you? So I know we're going to talk about good grief. Now, you did do another book. You did Echoes of Wisdom, What We Know Now.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to talk about a few things because I think you're friggin' cool. So
Awesome.
Yeah. So this will be good.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me about all of this stuff. What's
all of this stuff? Well, I'll preface one part. So this year I was very fortunate to be asked to teach the race school again. So I did race motorcycles for a handful of years, and the racing of motorcycles actually drew me over to being in the race engineering world in Europe. But I won motorcycle lessons. I didn't grow up riding bikes or anything like that. And the last couple of years, I've taken a bit of a hiatus, but I've been trying to go to track days still, and then maybe come back out of retirement into the veterans class or seniors open, something like this.
Oh God, give yourself a break.
But yeah, it's lovely. I was very fortunate to have won motorcycle lessons. It was kind of sort of rigged. And then that was from my engineering buddies. And then eventually after riding bikes and pulling wrenches for other teams, and I wasn't a mechanic by trade either, but, doing some mindset coaching, some Reiki and what have you, it turned into me wanting to marry my hobby and my career. I was like, what am I doing in all these racetracks and during the week I'm in a cubicle? I might as well make this all one. So back in December of 2007, I donated, burned or sold almost everything I owned and moved to Europe. And I did a master's in race car engineering. So I went from 2 wheels to 4, which was crazy. And there's a lot of life lessons there, like you move across the world and you have to learn languages. You have to make friends, right?
So where did you go in Europe?
So I lived in Basque Country in northern Spain.
Okay.
And I worked at the best tracks in Europe. So Silverstone in the UK, a few tracks in Spain, Portugal, Germany, Austria, Netherlands. A little bit of everywhere, Holland.
Oh my God, you want to be best friends?
It was so good. And I miss it. It's like the life of the circus. You show up at the track. You set up all the tents and everything, because we were kind of supporting classes on some of I didn't work in F1, but I worked in feeder classes to F1.
I love that.
So it's like junior A hockey. Yeah, it was super fun.
If you were, I don't know if you're married or what your situation is, but there's a part of me that's like, if you were in a dating profile, never put that on there, because then they'd be like, oh my God, this is my way in. This is my way in to go to Formula One. I'd be like, don't use me for my car.
You will love this, Lisa. So I am married, and I'm married to a truck driver, and he was the truck driver at the race car team where I did my master's.
You know what? It's a love story.
It is a love story.
That's all I got. It's like that to me is a love story. You married the truck driver that was with you on your adventure and experienced all these things and watched you go from a seed to this beautiful flower.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way.
And it's funny because you mentioned the book. So the first book here, the Echoes of Wisdom one.
Yeah.
This one is great. So there's 14 authors. I wrote the foreword in Echoes of Wisdom and a chapter. Okay. And my chapter is about how I completely blew it on my very first motorcycle race, got passed by everyone because I messed up the start. And like I said, I didn't grow up with bikes, so it wasn't like I had this in my blood. Yeah. And got lapped twice. Ooh. So the chapter is all about forgiving yourself right away and being able to tell yourself, like, we have to put a pin on this right now, but we can go back later and pull out the lessons. So it's called The Art of Forgiveness at Full Throttle. That's what the chapter is.
I love that. Funny, because your other book it's got kind of like a mirroring theme. It's got a theme kind of message there because you talk about being a caregiver to your mom
Yeah.
and that she passed and that you have to give yourself some grace because
Mhm.
you went through acute grief and PTSD from everything. And it's funny because I believe that that story will resonate so much with my best friend. She cared for
Mm.
her father that had cancer, and she was with him till the end of life. And I don't think I know, I shouldn't say I don't think, I know she hasn't fully grieved him. And people don't understand the complexities of grief when you are the caregiver as well.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's a different beast is what it is. Cause I mean, like someone passing away and you finding out, you're going through all of the steps, the emotions, all of the different things. Right. But um, when you're the caregiver and you watch the person have their high, low, low, and then deteriorate and then come back a bit, and it's a roller coaster.
It is a roller coaster. It
And
is a
you're
roller
waiting,
coaster.
yeah, you're waiting every day for something to go wrong or the shoe to drop or you to wake up and them not be awake and something,
Yeah.
and you're just like, so yeah, that's a great
Caregiving's
story to
tough.
write about.
Caregiving is tough. And I think there's probably more to share than just one chapter of the book. Well, not I think there is,
Yeah.
because I don't even go into as much as what caregivers' remorse is.
Yes.
So I was talking at a local event here in Calgary and I was promoting the book a bit. And, I had asked the room, do a lot of people know about what caregivers' remorse is and what it really means?
Mhm.
And not a lot of people did. And it's that whole, when you go back and think about all the different decisions that you made and were they the best ones, and did I give enough medication for this, and or did I give enough pillow for that, and it really invoked some interesting conversation even after the event. Like a girlfriend of mine said, I was near my dad and I was so frustrated with him because he had reverted back to a kid and I probably wasn't my most graceful or patient self.
Yeah.
So there's so many things that you can just beat yourself up on as a caregiver,
100%.
you know, because at the end of the day, and I don't know whether I wrote this in my book in this way or in the chapter, but, at some point I realized I've got her life in my hands. And this is like a massive, well, I mean, it's an honor. It's a giant privilege that she had asked me to do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. I mean, like, um, I was a caregiver for my younger brother for years, but I mean, he's still alive, but he's severely handicapped. And I did that all through when I was younger. So I don't have the same, it's a different type of attachment caregiver when you're young and then you grow up. And then now I've got my own kids. And then when my father passed,
Yeah.
um, it's a different type of grief when you are the ones that go through a different type of trauma. It's not just like yours wasn't simple because you watched your parent deteriorate, where I had to go in and make a decision of whether or not I'm pulling a plug because of an accident, right?
Oh, wow.
So it comes down to, how do you go through that? Like, people ask me, they say like, oh, Lisa, like, how are you now? And I'm like, it was the right thing to do. Like, I remember going into the hospital after I got a call from my mom, and my mom and my dad are divorced.
Okay.
So I'm the next of kin. My brother's in Ontario. I'm here in Alberta, and my
Yeah.
other little brother, isn't sound of mind, right? So I called my older brother and I was like, hey, like, this is I'm like, I have a bad feeling. Mom's called me and said dad's on his way to the hospital
Yeah.
because all the roommate, because my parents still spoke to each other.
Sure.
And so his best friend or his roommate, whatever, had called my mom. And this wasn't the first time my dad had gone by ambulance somewhere, so whatever.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really concerned normally. I was
Yeah.
just like, oh yeah, mom, just whatever, it's fine, kind of thing. But she called me and she said, I don't have a lot of details. I heard your dad fell down the stairs. I'm headed to the hospital. And something inside of me was like, you have to go. And so I called my brother on the way and I'm like,
Ooh, I
something,
just got goosebumps. My
right? I was
goodness.
like, something's wrong, Mike. I have to go. I'm like, I will call you as soon as I get there. Please stay by your phone. Because my brother and I mean, we've got a really good relationship, but at the same time, like, I'm a chatty Cathy and he's not. So he's like, unless it's something important, Like, don't
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
You know,
So what
so
happened when you got there?
so when I got there, well, right away they rushed me into an emerge portion where it's like I don't know what it is, like the grief counseling room. And I'm like, oh, okay. But I'm really good in emergencies. I don't break down. I'm
Yeah.
very like, I almost get like, very
You get in
professional.
the zone. You
Yeah,
get in the
very
zone and it's,
professional. So
yep,
the
take care
doctor
of stuff.
walks in and he's with the nurse and my mom's there and his best friend's crying. And I'm like, and I look at his best friend and I'm like, do you need to be here? And he's just like, what? And I'm like, do you need to be here? And my mom's like, oh, we're going to let him stay. And I'm like, okay, then zip it because I need to get all of the information so I can make a decision here.
Yeah.
So, and the doctor's just looking at me and I said, okay, brass tacks, guys, what's going on? So they gave me the brass tacks of what had happened to my dad, that he was basically passed away when they got him. Took him 30 minutes to revive him. I'm like, okay, brain damage. Sounds good. What else we got?
Yep.
They're like fractures down his spine, dissected his artery from his brain in his neck to his brain. And I was
His
like, oh,
carotid artery.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, so why do we have him on life support? And I'm like, just so you guys are aware, he's a DNR. And they're
Yeah.
like, well, we don't have any documents. And I'm like, I know, that's why I'm here. So I said, give me 20 minutes. I need to make some phone calls and then we will move forward on doing, on how this is going to go. And they just looked at me and I was just like, so like, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
And they're like, because they're so used to people being hysterical.
Yeah.
Right.
But that in itself is a form of survival mode that sounds like people like you and I are like, because even when I went out to my mom's place,
yeah.
the first thing I did when I got there was, because I had to and I knew I had to leave space, I just spent a day and a half just doing a little bit of vacuuming, checking out the dynamic, feeling how it was. But it wasn't very long until, bang, project manager side comes. Okay, which are the doctors that you're using? Like, I still have the book that I had to write down the medications, the doctor's appointments, all the little things, because you forget.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise.
I know, I love writing. Like, I wrote all your stuff down on a piece of paper.
No.
I have to. You got to write it down.
Yes. Yeah. And it really helps. So when you were in there then, after you had to make that decision, you got, your couple hours to get all the paperwork or get your emails, have proof for the DNS and everything. Right?
I didn't need proof for the DNR because I'm next to kin. So I didn't need proof for DNR because he had already been resuscitated. So he was on life support. Right.
Right.
So that it was more or less a choice of whether or not we take him off the life support. So I needed to make phone calls to his family in Toronto. Right. So, and I had to call his sister and everybody in Toronto, and I had to call my brother because he's also next of kin. And I had to say, here's where we're at. This is what's happening. And my brother and my dad didn't really get along really well. So he almost kind of fell apart because he was like, what do I do? Do I come? And I'm like, no, please stay where you are. I have enough to deal with. You don't like planes. You don't like death. You struggle with anxiety. And this is going to trigger both.
Yeah.
And you and dad weren't super close. My dad caused my dad was, a little crazy. He was Caribbean, right? A little crazy. And so
Caribbean. My dad was from Trinidad.
Mine's from Guyana.
Look at that. Little neighbor. And then my mom's a Newfie. My mom was from Newfoundland.
Oh, my mom's from Quebec.
Okay. So, very cool.
And
go half
right? I was gonna ask you if you had Caribbean because I was like, she looks like she could be Guyanese or Trini. And I was like, Trini. I love it. Our food is similar.
The Trini Newfie. Yeah. Whenever there was like, bring your ethnic background to school, I would just bring curried potatoes because then I've got the Irish and Indian kind of West Indies covered up.
Mm-hmm. And did your dad was Trini?
Yeah.
So did he call it like aloo pie?
I don't remember.
Because aloo is potatoes in our culture.
Okay.
That's what they call it. Mm-hmm. I know when I went to do culture day, we did curry too, but we did depended on my dad. My dad wanted to be goofy. He would do what we call it bunjal. So it's a dry curry.
Okay.
Yeah, with roti. Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We used to do the dal puris and stuff too.
I love dal puri.
So good. Well, look at that. Another connection. Bing.
Must be the fact that we're just half Caribbean, half white. It's like we just have to do everything. It's like we have to like, what do they call it? Overachievers.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, well,
Because
when
we
you're
don't have
born,
a box to fit in.
right? I wasn't black enough for the blacks, white enough for the whites. It was the Italians that loved me. And then until I met all the mixers, and then I was like, oh, you're half Jamaican, you're half Bayesian, you're half this. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Like, then I found my people.
Even when
But
I was out in Basque Country, a lot of people thought that I was Italian or Spanish, and there were a lot of people speaking to me in the native language all of a sudden. But yeah,
it's
so
true.
I
I
digress.
got I got Spanish and I got Aboriginal. Those were the two that
Mm,
I would get. And I
yeah.
was like, no, but thank you.
Thank
I
you.
got Italian too every once in a while because most of my Italian friends are very light skinned. So when people were like, "Are you Italian?" I was like, "Are Italians this dark?" And
They
they're
can
like,
be.
"Yeah, depends where you
Yep.
are from Italy." And I was like, "Oh,
Yep.
okay." So, but yeah, no, I totally understand. People were like, they didn't understand. And then I remember when I went to school because I was born in 81. So when I went to school, people were like, "Oh, your mom's white. Are you adopted?" And I was like, "No." Take your brown crayon and your white crayon and put it together. What does it make? Me.
I got the adoption question a lot as well because my mom had like green eyes and
Mine too.
yeah,
My
yeah,
mom has green eyes too.
yeah,
Yeah.
very nice.
I know she's got Irish. So because my last name is McGrath and that's my maiden name. That's my mom.
Okay,
My mom is McGrath. So her mother is from Cape Breton and my grandfather's from Ireland.
wicked.
I know. I'm like,
Yeah.
I love confusing people because I'm like, on my mom's side, I'm like second generation immigrant. My dad, I'm first generation immigrant. But then on my mom's side, I'm like all the way back. Like
Yeah.
they've been here since go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Same with my Newfie side. One part of my Newfie side, we can trace back at Red Island
Hmm.
to 1806 or something like this.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I'm only kind of immigrant, only kind of,
Mm. Oh, I'm kind of sort of full on, yeah, everywhere.
right?
Yeah.
Meh, it is what it is.
Yes.
But yes, so when we're talking about my my dad thing, I took I had my dad cremated because I had to make all the phone calls, and my aunts and uncles were like, "Well, can you keep him on life support?" I'm like, "No.
Yeah.
Under zero circumstance will I give him a chance to wake up with a broken neck, brain damage. Not happening.
Yeah.
Not happening." I'm pulling the plug in like an hour and a half. As soon as I get off the phone with my brother, it's done. I'm going
That's
to go
great.
sit with him. And they were like, okay. And I'm like, so, and then we had to go through all the forms like donor, this, that, and the other thing. And so
Yes.
then I took the doctor, I sidebarred him. And I was like, let's take a walk just over here into this like vacant room for a second. I need to ask you a very sensitive question. And he was like, what? I'm like, what was his alcohol level? What was his blood alcohol? And the doctor just kind of looked at me and said, oh, hey. And I'm like, oh, I'm sure he was pickled. So how pickled was my dad? And he's like, he was like 6 times over the legal limit. I'm like,
Wow.
well, he didn't feel much. And
That's
it wasn't a
fair.
car accident. He got home. So he basically drove home perfectly fine and then fell down the stairs.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Mm.
oh, Dad.
But
So
that's a tough thing to have to navigate all the family because that was something that, you know, there were certain people that really wanted to see my mom, for example.
yeah,
And this was during COVID times. This is August 2020. Like,
brutal.
yeah, it was hard. So, and that's why I took on the whole role because we had
Yeah.
community nurses were unreal in the neighborhood that we were at in St. John's. Same with their healthcare system, where if you've got someone at home who's actively dying, you got a phone number or you've got a patient number that you can call. So you call 911 and you give them the patient number. I realized I said that all wrong. Let's start that off. You've got a number that you can give when you call
Mm-hmm.
911, and they've got a separate, maybe, I don't know how many they have, probably 2 or 3 or something like this, ambulances that are specifically for palliative care. So if you need help, with you're out of pills and you need an injection, or, someone messed the bed and you need them to put the patient on a stretcher for a couple of minutes so that you can change the bed or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things, those were at my fingertips, which was incredible.
Yeah.
like that was the amount of support that I felt, even knowing that that was there. I didn't use it very often because, again, it was a bunch of people coming in, they're wearing masks.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens to all of this, but as soon as we put on a mask, we think that we need to yell. It's like, oh, all of a sudden you can't hear me. It's like, dude, you're right here. We're good.
I
My
mean,
mom doesn't need to like hear everyone yelling. But the interesting thing with the COVID and everything is that, of course, I want to make sure that as many of her siblings can come and say goodbye,
yeah.
or, and talk with her about it, because she wasn't all that comfortable having a bunch of visitors either,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in the state that she was in. So it's very interesting being, navigating that for someone that you love and making those decisions when they don't have the voice, but
Yeah.
what they want.
Yeah. Well, you're an advocate, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that when I was reading everything, I was like, this is a person that is very much an advocate and teaches people how to be an advocate for themselves. And it was, it's funny because it always kind of comes back full circle, because I'm also, that's basically what I do for a living, is I am an advocate for condo boards, right? When they're trying to do construction projects. But
Okay.
I advocate in so many areas that I have to make sure that my kids understand advocation as well, and that they can do it for themselves. My son's pretty good at advocating for himself and for his family, and like myself and his sister, but my daughter's a little bit more closed off. And it's hard. I don't ever want her to look at her mom and think I could never be my mother. You're not your mother. You're supposed to be something else and something amazing somewhere else. You're not supposed to be me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here, paving the way for you. I'm helping us to have a good life so you can make the decisions you want to make and go be what you want to be.
Yeah.
Right. And she's chosen something, so I'm very excited about it. She wants to be in culinary. So I was like, I'll send you to SAIT to get your red seal, and then I'll ship you off to the UK. I want to send her to Scotland to get her blue seal. So
very cool.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law is a Basque chef, actually, and she was working as the chef for the race car team too.
Nice.
It was quite interesting.
But that's the thing, is that like, sky's the limit in certain industries that people don't even consider. And I tell my daughter that. I'm like, I said, first of all, I would love for you to travel and learn different cuisines. You can, at the end of the day, come back to Canada if you want, open a food truck, open a bistro, open whatever you want and go. Or I'm like, you can travel. You can go on cruise ships. You can go into different restaurants in different areas and different countries. You can go, I'm like, there's so many.
Probably didn't tell her about race car teams yet. Now you are.
Yeah. Right. So there's so many cool things to do. And I'm just like, people don't consider that.
Yeah.
It's like you could be a masseuse or a hairdresser or a lash tech, but those jobs can take you anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So very excited for her on that one.
I am too.
I know. My sister-in-law was just here from Ontario. And she's like, oh, I'm so excited. She's like, we're going to go to Scotland and you're going to cook for us. I was like, she's way ahead than I am. I'm like, I already get her to cook for me, but I'm good. I'll go to Scotland.
I'll take that too.
Well, and I don't know if I want her to go to France. I haven't heard as many good things as I'd like to about France. I hear, other than the fact that it's really beautiful and it's trendy, but I hear that it's very rude.
It can be a bit more of a closed culture, but it just depends on how you show up,
I don't know how she'll show up as she gets older. She's very shy right now.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing. So I remember when I was in Basque Country, they're quite closed at first. They're like the opposite of Newfies, essentially, like 180 degrees of Newfies. But when you're in, you're in. Yeah. But it does take a little bit to get in. Now, I'm obviously super shy. No, not at all. So I had a couple of sets of these posses that they have out there, which are your group of friends that you've been with since kindergarten kind of age. And I remember talking to, I was interviewed by a gal that's from the UK, and she was writing articles for a Basque program. And I happened to be singing in a rock band doing backup singing in a rock band in Spanish and Basque. And I translated one song and I sang it in English myself. But it was so funny because I'm chatting with her and she's like, so how did you get up on the stage and you're with this group and they're kind of a famous group from the 80s. So how do you know them? And I was just explaining to them how I was friends of friends. But the point is that she was saying, that was having a harder time making friends.
Really?
And she's not that outgoing. Like, she's a brilliant woman. I enjoyed any time that we hung out together,
Mm-hmm.
but it was hard for her to get right into the culture. So when you say the difference between like Scottish or French, and then Spain in itself is very different if it's the North Basque part or if it's Valencia or the southern part, like there's a different vibe around things. And it's very interesting to study that before you go places
Mm-hmm.
so that you kind of get what you're about to walk into. So if
Yeah.
some places, they're super friendly, but maybe the friendship is a little shallower,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll be okay saying hi, hugs, high fives, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But maybe you're not going to have maybe a guard up, but you're going to understand and set your expectations that even though it may feel like we're best friends right away, there's still a bit of a distance,
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, you go to Maritime Canada and you'll probably be invited over to Sunday Jig's dinner if, if
Not wrong.
someone hears that you're from out of town and alone, it could
I know.
happen.
Well, what's funny? So I didn't know how Newfoundlanders spoke until there was like an influx of them that came in into Alberta to work. And then
Yeah.
I was always, because I'm in construction, so of course they're all in construction, right? And I remember I would use like different little lines. Like I'd always hear them with like the lard tender and Jesus bye. I'd always hear that one. And I'd always hear, and then they did the I's the buy that buys the boat, I's the buy that sails it. You know that one?
Yes.
So then they would tell me that, or they'd stay where you at, come where you to. And I was like, what? So, I mean, now if I go into Newfoundland, I'll probably understand a lot more than I ever did because I've been around so many of them speaking
Yes.
their native tongue. And the accent comes out far more when they have a couple of drinks.
Yes.
Far more. I'm like, well, you guys really hide your accent. They're like, yeah, we have to.
Otherwise, people won't understand.
Yeah. So I'm like, So
Yeah.
that was funny when I have a couple of my girlfriends we'd have a couple of glasses of wine or she'd have a couple beers. And then all of a sudden I was like, what just happened? Who are you? And she's like, oh no, this is how I speak. And I was like, oh, well, just teach us and we'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it
The
was good.
Newfoundlandese comes out.
Newfoundlandese. I love that.
Yes, the Newfoundlandese. I'm fluent in Newfoundlandese.
Well,
Yeah.
you would have to be with a Newfoundlander mom.
Yes, absolutely. And all the cousins. So I'm actually cousin Jessica Sudine on Facebook because of all my Newfoundland cousins. And we
Oh, yeah.
all preface with our cousin, like you'd be cousin
Yeah.
Lisa. How's it going, cousin Lisa? Oh, good. How are you doing, cousin Jess? It's ridiculous.
I love it. I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And then, so you're in Alberta right now, aren't you?
I am. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm in Calgary.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
you're not far. I'm just in Airdrie, so I'm not far from you.
Oh, yes. Very good.
It's like a quick little jaunt down the road.
And the
but
racetrack is just north of you, like just in
Not wrong.
Carstairs.
I know.
Yes.
It's very close.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you now, what are you doing right now in Calgary other than writing this part of this book? Because are you doing a lot of consultancy work right now?
So yeah, that's part of what my business is. So what I love doing is the keynotes. I love doing speaking. So I talk
Yeah.
about social, emotional, situational intelligence
Okay.
using motorsports as analogies.
I love that.
Yeah. So if I'm explaining, how to make a workplace more, like how to bring more psychological safety in a workplace,
Mhm.
what better way to explain it as when you're doing a pit stop
Mhm.
and you need to make sure that even when there are failures, the race doesn't stop. So it has to be a safe place to fail, but really with under 2 seconds for a pit stop, there's not a lot of room for failure. So
That's
it's
right.
really all the stuff that you do prior to getting to the track and that psychological safety that you're creating.
Mhm.
So this is how I explain the different things. So
I love it.
one of my favorites is speaking at professional conference, annual conferences for professional societies. And then not so long ago, and I'm really bad for this, I got to start tooting my own horn a little bit. This week, next week, I'll have to do a big post about it. But I got a certification from Workplace Education Manitoba, WEM,
Nice.
and I'm going to be, I think they're capping it at 120 relational skill
Mhm.
practitioners. So
Okay.
this is where some of that consulting comes in.
Yep.
So you're working on different modules that include civility, obviously emotional and social intelligence. It includes like, how are we communicating? How
Hmm.
are we being adaptable?
Hmm.
How are the systems like? So we have a module on systems thinking as well, and I lead some of the mentor calls that we're doing, or the mentor calls within the group now, and really looking at, okay, well, and you'd understand in construction, like, how does procurement and engineering play? How
Hmm.
does manufacturing and marketing play? And looking at those subgroups, those
Yep.
cross-functional groups, and understanding that often, if you want things to go smoother, you're going to want to put in some empathy exercises,
Hmm.
some compassion exercises. Let's maybe not full on cross training so that everyone's doing each other's jobs, but maybe
Hmm.
an hour or two of job shadowing, or getting
Hmm.
out of the office a little bit and having people explain, like, well, where is your pain points?
Hmm.
And how can I possibly, in my role way over there, how can I be part of that so that we can make all of this run smoother? And I want to get up and go to work more,
Yeah.
as opposed to, oh God, this is the grind and stuff like that. Yeah. So
Yep.
between speaking and workshops, I do a little bit of workshops at the University of Calgary as well, within their engineering leadership program. And
Love that.
that's really fun. Some stuff, and something new I've been doing, and this is so different because I don't have kids, but I've
Hmm.
been speaking at schools.
Love that.
So yeah, and it's really funny. So
So,
go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I spoke in front of a very diverse range of ages. So
Hmm.
I had questions about, like, do F1 cars not have windshields because of the drag and this and that? And I'm like, oh, great question. And then someone else is asking, so can you put 1,000 liters into a car? Like the difference between, a 6-year-old and a 14-year-old.
So fun. What I was going to say to you is, I think you'd be a great speaker at my kids' school, and that is K to 12, and they would have you come into the high school
Mm.
probably to speak because it's entrepreneur.
Ooh.
Yeah. So they go to an entrepreneurial school, and I go in and speak as well, and I get them to do stuff. I'm like, I get them to do networking things.
Oh, nice.
I know. I make them do activities. So there's quite a few entrepreneurial parents, but what ends up happening is, parents come in and they're just like, they talk about kind of like what they do and how they got there. I'm like, these are kids. You're going to lose them. So the principal, who's now the superintendent, when I went in to do my talk, introduced me and gave like the little synopsis of who I am, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and it was so funny when she handed the mic over to me, and I'm like, well, we don't need to talk about me anymore. She just did. So and they all kind of laughed, and I was like, and most of them knew who I am because my kids go to school right there, right? So they were like, "Oh, it's like it's Jocelyn's mom or Tyler's mom," and then I was like, "Okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna separate you guys all into different groups." And then I started pulling people and putting them into different groups, and I'm like, "Introduce yourself and find out one thing about everybody in the group that they like or that they don't like. Let's hear it."
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I was like, what was the point of the exercise? And I was so impressed with some of the grades because one of the grade levels was like, the point of this exercise was networking. And I was like, excellent. But it was a grade that I didn't anticipate.
Okay.
So yeah,
Younger than you
younger.
thought.
I
Yeah.
was expecting the like 10, 11, 12s to figure that out, but that's not what happened. Yeah. So
That's very cool. Yeah.
yeah.
Someone had actually asked if there would be any chance of doing a pit stop, like of changing tires at a presentation. I'm like, that would be logistically complicated and potentially a liability. However, I like the idea.
I think it's a great thing. And I think almost if you built, um, like not like a super, like kind of more of like a futuristic aspect of like a pit stop, and built it with all the different things and brought it in. It doesn't have to be like a vehicle of sorts,
Exact. Yeah.
yeah, but something that would basically help them, because then you put them in the pit stop and say, this is what the pit stop offers, and before it can offer this, it has to have all of that before it can
Yeah.
come in and be this pit stop, right? Because you're right, pit stops are right now, right?
Yeah.
It's so quick. Like, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a car be in a pit stop longer than like seconds.
Oh yeah.
Seconds.
So a good pit stop in F1 would be 1.7, 1.8 seconds. So often when I'm doing talks and I'm explaining this, it's like 1,000, 2, 1,000, gone.
Yeah.
Right. And that's 4 tires, probably no gas, but at least 4 tires and maybe anything
I've
else
seen
if
them do
needed.
gas. I've seen them do gas.
Yeah.
I've seen them do tires, because there's it's all of them. There's
Yeah. And
like
if
seven
there's a
people.
crash, then
Yeah.
sometimes they have to replace the front wing. So they're taking that off, putting it back on, making
Oh my
sure that
God,
you've got
so fast.
spares.
It is so fast, but everybody is so coordinated. They're so in sync. They know
Yeah.
exactly what their job is. They have it all set up and prioritized so that no one's tripping over. There's no bottlenecking. It's just
Yeah.
go. And I
Yeah.
love that. And that's where I try to explain to people, it's why, project managers and people of that caliber exist, is because they're the ones that have to look at everything and go, how are we going to complete this task with minimal problems?
Yes.
And, especially with all these different, like in construction, you got a whole bunch of trades coming in, and I don't want them bottlenecking. So the minute they bottleneck, I'll be like, go for lunch. Bye. you know, because it happens where somebody will catch up because one guy is moving slower or there was a problem. So they had to
Yeah.
put more time into something. And so then it's my job before they get to that bottleneck point to be like, oh, you guys don't need to be here for the rest of the day because this guy is behind. Or can you start over on the other side? Or whatever the case may be. I have to redirect 1 to 3 crews just to make sure that the other ones aren't standing around staring at the guy that's like, well, hurry up, because it stresses him out too, right?
For sure.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
anybody just standing there being like, anytime now, Ed. it's like, it's like, leave me alone. I'm trying. But so I
Yeah.
think what you do is amazing. And all these different speaking engagements, love that. Yes, I mean, obviously, like attracts like, right? So you're well spoken and you're wonderful. Just sit there.
That's right. Is your podcast also video? Is this a YouTube thing?
Yeah, it's everything.
Okay, perfect.
It's everything. You got to have fun,
I
right?
love it.
But everybody gets it. So it drops every Wednesday. And then the feeds, so my RSS feeds are through Apple and Spotify right away.
Wonderful.
I believe it does go to YouTube as well. But for some reason, I'm going to have to talk to my producer about it. But I have to get it so that it doesn't go straight to private on YouTube. But then it does get loaded to the YouTube channel. Well, that reminds me, I have to do that on something as well. So we'll have to do that. Now
Fun
that I've
stuff.
just thought of it. We were thinking about
Fun
that today. We were
stuff.
talking about, yeah. So it is, it's a lot of fun. And, I will tell you, so my journey into the podcast world, I met somebody because I was doing a lot of networking online through Alignable. Have you heard of Alignable?
No.
Okay. So Alignable.
Yes, I have.
Okay. So I did a lot of stuff on Alignable. I became like one of their leads, and I did Airdrie, and I had Calgary, and we had lots of fun. I did lots of meetings. I worked alongside my girlfriend, Sam Rathis, and she is an amazing coach for coaches.
Okay.
Love that she did that. Because coaches need coaches. And I was like, true. So her and I worked side by side together. She started the group in Calgary, and I came in and helped her. She's the introvert. She's like, I'd rather not have to do anything. And I was like, yeah, I love people. So whatever you want to do. And she was like, sounds good. So she was like, Lisa, you do all the meetings and you book all the meetings because extrovert, right? So I was like, yeah, absolutely. But I found that when I was going through Alignable that I was helping everybody, but I wasn't being recognized. And I'm like, I'm too niche. I need to stay inside I need to get in my lane and stay there, because I was going into so many lanes. It was like I was in the bus lane, and I was in the semi lane, and I was in the little car lane. Like,
that leads to the burnout lane.
Yes, exactly. And then I was like, well, I'm not getting anywhere. But I had managed to meet a few people through Alignable that to this day I still speak to. So to me, it wasn't a wash. I think that when you have an opportunity to meet people, and it's like people in the States, people here in Alberta, people in Ontario, people in Saskatchewan, BC. I've met so many people that I stay in contact with. So to me, networking is never it's never a waste of time.
Yeah.
Never. You never know when those people are going to come back around and be your buddies. So, but the podcast started because I met somebody in Alignable. His name is Victor Felix, and he is a marketing strategist. And he was up my butt. He was like, start a podcast. And I was like, I don't know. I'll have to think about it.
Yeah.
So I went on my merry little way for about a year, and I worked with Victor for quite some time. Great guy, super awesome guy. Worked with him until I didn't need him anymore, which was great. And then he carried on, and I still encourage him, and we're still linked on a whole bunch of stuff. Victor's great. And then I ran into another person this is now my producer, but he was the one who helped me start on podcasts. And I don't remember where Michael and I met. I want to say it was maybe Alinables or something. Maybe Voice of God will trigger in and he'll just say something, but I doubt it. So
he's still listening, right?
Right? It's like, are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. I have a question. Teacher, I have a question.
Oh, Margaret. God,
Margaret. So he actually, oh, you know what? He put something in the chat. He's hilarious. He's like,
always listening.
Right? Like I said, I know. Just always listening. Jesus. That's funny. So I met Michael, I think, well, his team, it was Michael, because I talked to him, and Michael is more, I don't know, like he's just more people oriented. The way he speaks to you, he's more down to earth and easygoing. It's not like, let's get you the next big thing. And let's, like there's no gimmicks with him. He's just like, listen, if it's something you want to do, let's do it. I think you'd be great at it. Pick your thing and just go. And I was like, no, I don't know. And so then I would do some recordings. It's like, try doing some recordings. And what I had done while I was working with Victor was I was doing TikToks. Okay. But like really like, like they were really like, the ones that are like pre-made, and you kind of just like do like the little tests, or you like wait for something. So it was getting me comfortable seeing myself on camera. Yeah. Is what it was doing. And I was like, okay, well, this works. So then.
And that's a big thing.
It's huge. People like, now I'm like, it's so funny. Now I'll go listen to myself. Whereas before I was so scared to listen to myself. And now I'll go listen to my podcast and I'm like, oh yeah, that was actually pretty funny. I'm pretty funny. But before I was like, I can't listen to it. I can't look at myself. Yeah. But so you got to get comfortable. And so when I did that, and then all of a sudden Michael's just like, yeah, we're just going to fire these off. And he starts loading them. And I'm like, oh, and I'm having a heart attack. I'm like, I didn't like that one. He's like, it'll be better. Don't worry about it. Your first ones are never good. Don't worry about it. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, talk about like sideswipe. But then here I am, like, what are we? So September. So it's like 6-7 months later. And I'm, my podcast is ranking really well. I've got a lot of listeners, and I love the listeners, and it's great. Yeah. I mean, like, but you got to have fun, right? It's all about having fun with people and learning about them as people. That's the whole purpose of my podcast, was to create a platform. Like, if I just asked you a bunch of penetrating questions, I wouldn't know how cool you are and that you didn't use me. Okay?
Yeah. So how did you like your engineering leadership time and some of these kind of questions? Yeah. But there are funner questions to ask, right? Like, I mean, one of my second last full-time job, I was a global engineering director with Honeywell. And it was so cool because we were all like Six Sigma experts. So we were either lean experts or black belts. I was a lean expert. And it was great because any time that anything went sideways, they would call us, our team, and we would get deployed to go, like, I felt like a fix-it. I felt like some sort of corporate fixer. Like, it was fabulous. And I mean, I got to travel the world for this. So there I am back in Czech Republic. I ended up hooking up with, not that kind of hookup, but I ended up meeting up with, meeting up with one of my former race engineer colleagues in Czech Republic while I was there working with my corporate life. And, we were talking about back in the day and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, those are the kind of times, and it was a room full of 35 men. I was like, guys, I was in your office yesterday because we had the meeting off site. I was in your office yesterday. I know women exist. Why is there not at least one woman on this project, regardless of function, but just one? Because I'm of the opinion, all women bad, all men bad. Like, you need a mix to be able to do really effective problem solving.
Oh, so you're equally prejudiced. Me too.
Absolutely. Me too. Everyone's all bad. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. But it's fun, right? When you're like able to travel like that, and when you're able
Mhm.
to kind of get into the groove of, okay, well, what am I trying to figure out here? And
Yeah.
same thing, it came down to communication. It came down to the project was stalled because engineering and marketing didn't know that they were feeding information into the same system, into the same database, but they weren't trained on how to get there. And they
Mm.
weren't trained on, well, it's in this folder. Yeah, okay, but maybe we should have some time to say, this is how the customer
Yeah.
requirements are being given. And let's have some time with everyone to chew into that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and it's funny because there's so much crossover based on like what you do and what I do, in the sense that like I'm dealing with engineers right now. I'm dealing with structural engineers right now because we are doing a building envelope, and I'm, like I'm kind of like I'm the champion. I'm the board champion is how they would identify me, because a lot of engineers do not want to sit and small talk. I don't think a lot of them know how. A lot of them, they're not,
Or
they're
it's
like,
just not interesting.
no, they're like if and they speak very technically. So I've been in industry long enough that I still have lots to learn, but I speak engineer. So when we start talking technical, then I'm like, okay. And then I have to make sure that the engineers and the contractors get along.
Yeah.
Because if a contractor doesn't get along with the engineer, because technically he says I can do it this way, but technically I can do it this way, and he's just adding more money to it, and then it's a fight, and then I have to get involved with it. So that's why I'm in there. I'm in there like a jerk. I'm like, whatever grievances you have, you come talk to me about, and I will deal with it.
Yeah.
And nobody's fighting with the engineer because that we need their stamp. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but then, like with the owners, because the owners, they just want to talk your ear off. They got all the skin in the game. They don't understand. They want to understand, but there's so
Yeah.
many of them they're all from different walks of life, and
Mm.
people are the biggest hazard that you can't control.
Yes.
So it's like, you sit there and you're dealing with multiple personalities. So I'm just like, everything goes through me. The engineer gives me a report. I talk to the engineer and go through it. I make sure I understand it inside out, so that when I come and give it to you in layman's terms, everybody's under the same understanding. And when I regurgitate it back in layman's terms, and I'll regurgitate it back in layman's terms to the engineer.
Yes.
If I tell my client like this, is this accurate? And they're like, yep.
Yeah. See, and
They're like,
that's an important skill, and that's actually one
Yeah.
of the ones that I leave on almost all of my keynotes is the idea of, okay, have you reworded using some of the same words, and then some of your own paraphrasing,
Yeah.
but don't do it without checking first.
Yeah.
Like, how did this land? Some of the workshops that I do as well, it's like, okay, well, I said, you're going to listen to someone, I'm going to ask them 2 questions. They're going to say a little bit, 3 minutes max.
Yeah.
And then I want you to tell me what they said.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just like, are you listening, but are you understanding? So
Right.
I want you to say it in the same way that it was asked. So use the same prompt, and as an interviewer, you know it, right? So ask the question via an answer that you've been asked, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then check in. How did that land for you? Is this right? Did I get it right? Oh, there's more information that I need. And all of this is like a massive key for communication.
Right. And the biggest thing is that people are too busy listening to speak versus listening to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always a big problem when it comes to that. So, and only that, but the big thing that my job is to make these people teams. Me, the board, the engineer, all of the trades, whoever's on site, we're a team. Right. So even though the engineering firm is this engineering firm, and this is this contractor, and my company's this, it doesn't matter. When we're on site, we're team, whatever your building is called. And we're all working together, and we all have the same goal for this to be a succession. That's it.
And you said you work at a property management, is it?
No. I run my own company. So I work with boards. So property managers will call me in and be like, "Hey, Lisa, we have a project for capital reserve." So I'm in the renovation space. Is where I am.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah. So if you live in a great big condo and then you're sitting on the board or you're not sitting on the board and you've got these capital projects that have to happen. So like roof,
Yeah.
siding, anything like that. That's where I come in. So,
Very cool.
and I make sure that all these projects get done properly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's massive, right? Because you're dealing with different types of personalities based on backgrounds, based on roles, all that, right?
Oh yeah. And it's so funny because I'll always get boards that are like, okay, these are the troublemakers here. And they'll give me like a list and like the unit owners and everything. And I'm like, okay. And then I just walk over and like, they're like my best buddy.
Yeah.
And they're like, how did you do that? And I'm like, that's my job.
Well, and how did you do it? You made them feel heard. You went to them first, because if they're troublemakers, it's because they've got something to say.
That's right. And they're not being heard.
And they're not being heard.
You nailed it. That's it. And I tell people that. They're like, well, how did you become best friends? And I'm like, because everybody in here has a voice and they just want to be heard. And I heard them.
Yeah.
And I validated what they were saying. Yeah. And I brought it to your attention without putting their name on it. And you all agreed to it. And they were like, oh, and I'm like,
Yeah.
So, and I remember asking, there was this one lady, she could be very difficult if you didn't understand her demeanor. She could come across as difficult to some people. Just very straightforward, no fluff, like zero fluff. I have like 10% fluff, So, but she had zero fluff. And when I met her and she was like, oh, good, you're here. Come in, sit there. I was like, oh, here we go. And I'm like, okay, at least I'll get the brass tacks. I won't have to sit here for 3 hours while she fluffs me to death. And she did. It was like a 20-minute conversation. I wrote everything down and I said, okay, this is great. I'm going to take this back, but your name is not going to be part of it. I'm going to put this under my name. Mm-hmm. And I said, because I want you to understand that sometimes getting what you want sometimes doesn't always happen out of your mouth. I am going to be your instrument to help you push this through, because the minute they hear your name, it's done. Yeah. So I'm like, that is a them problem. It's not a you problem, but we want this for you. Yes? She's like, yes. I'm like, perfect. Are you okay with me taking this as my own and putting it to them so that there's no discrimination? Yeah. And she was like, yeah, I'm good with it. And I'm like, okay. Because sometimes that's what happens. It doesn't matter how smart the person is, how smart you tell them they are, that they're right. Some people, when they're not as intelligent, they will double down on stupid decisions. Yeah. And you're like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Like, just take the accountability that maybe that wasn't the right choice, and you can look past it and, well, you know what? Maybe I was wrong about this person, or I'm not wrong about this person, but they have a good point. I should have given them a chance to say this, right? Yeah. There's different ways of taking accountability for, your decision making, but to double down, like a double negative, I'm like, yeah. You kind of look dumber. But I mean, I've read so many different things and seen it myself where people will do that. And you're almost like, oh, yeah, no.
Yeah. How can I support this? Yeah. How can I make this better?
Well, that's why I came up with, I have different acronyms. So I have these mugs made here. I've, my son's best friend's mother makes these beautiful mugs, and I usually always have one. Today I don't. I just have my Fresca can, but usually I have these beautiful mugs, and they're all LPM or Devil's Advocate Trades Edition. She's made them all for me, and I have acronyms. So on my LPM ones, I have acronyms. One is FOCUS, which is fuck off because you're stupid. The other one is FAFO, fuck around and find out. One says cool story, bro. Another one says good talk. Those are all the things I say. When I'm on site, I say all those things. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to really need you to focus right now. And then people are just like, whoa. For the ones that know what it means, right? They just giggle. And I'm like, Or I'll say cool story. Good talk is my favorite. And it's the one that every male contractor hates. Because I'll be like, what are we doing today? And they're like, oh, we're doing blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool, good talk. I'll see you back in a minute. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well,
but that's creating connection as well, right?
Yeah. So it's one of the, and I mean, I always have fun with it. I always tease people and have fun, but I think a big part of it is, where people are getting lost. And this is where I pride myself on what people like you and I are doing is we're going out in person. We're
Mhm.
not doing all of it online. We don't anticipate to do it all. We actually enjoy going out. Like as I get older, I'll never stop loving being around people, but I
Yeah.
can't do it for long periods of time. Like when I do great big conventions, I'm like tapped by one day. If I
Yeah.
got to do 2 days, I'm like, ooh. Because you had mentioned Reiki. I'm a Reiki master.
Very nice.
So Reiki is very real. It's all about energy pushing, right? So
Yeah.
you're manipulating energy. And I mean, being a Reiki master, all it does is just give me a fancy title that says I can teach people how to do Reiki, which is great because then I can teach my daughter how to do Reiki because she's a natural healer. So I love that. But being a practitioner is all you need to be. And people are like, "Oh, does Reiki heal you?" No. Reiki removes or pushes the stagnant energy that is within the area of the body in order to allow healing to commence. We don't heal you. We just push all the shitty energy out that you're just holding on
Yeah.
to. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So I love that.
It's a wonderful thing.
It is. I could tell that you've done Reiki. So what's your background in Reiki? Tell me. I'm interested.
So my Reiki, I had a Reiki master who I'd met probably about 20 plus years ago now. Just, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she's Louise. Yep. And it was really interesting because I had always felt energies, and I studied Eastern religions when I
Mm-hmm.
was in high school. Even I was learning about Taoism. I went to a Roman Catholic high school, but I learned about all sorts of different religions, which I thought was brilliant. um, and the oh, sorry, I didn't put my computer on. uh,
Mm-hmm.
so when I was being a coach for the motorcycle racers, the Reiki came in beautifully. So
Yeah.
I had gotten up to, I think, level 2, where you're doing distance Reiki,
That's
future,
all you
you're
need.
doing time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Practitioner too. That's all you need.
Yeah. And so it'd be interesting to get rid of the energy because you're going 200K an hour,
Yeah.
and you don't need all the little gremlins in your head anyway that are happening, like the
Mm-hmm.
negative thoughts or the overthinking and all of that. But also, your body needs to be really
Oh.
loose.
Yeah.
Motorcycle racing and race car driving, like, it's not a smooth ride. You have to be smooth with your inputs,
Mm-hmm.
but you're braking hard, you're accelerating hard, you're turning quickly, like your
Yeah.
rate of
A lot
your
of
rate of
jolting.
turning, all of this. So it was really cool. One of my riders, Nadine Lajoie, I helped her in the summer before I went to Europe. And it was great because she went on to write her own book, and she lives in California, and she does all
Love
sorts of
that.
motivational stuff as well. But one of the biggest things that I found with her was her whole demeanor after giving her some Reiki right before she was about to go do qualifying or a practice session or even a race,
Mm-hmm.
was able to stabilize her nervous system as well, because a lot of that had to come within her. So it was, let's get rid of this stagnant energy, let's get some flow in, and now let's you do some breathing, and I'll
Yeah.
lead you on the breathing so that your cortisol levels are a little bit lower, even though we all know, like, the adrenaline is about to
Oh
come
yeah.
when the flag drops and you've got x amount
Well,
of time.
Well, yeah, the adrenaline rush is already coming. It's just another like dump that
Yeah.
happens when that flag goes, right? And it's good. And you're not wrong. And so I mean like and you should also be catering to the vagus nerve and saltwater showers are amazing to get rid of all that negativity.
Nice.
I know. I
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. So
I've done
it was very interesting to do this, like, on the track right
yeah,
there. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And you also have to see the change, the calm,
Yes.
right?
The calm.
So that's to me that's what's rewarding is when you see it.
Yeah.
And even when they're like, "Oh my god, I feel good." And you're like, "Good. Go."
Yeah. Well, and that feedback is important. And it's
Yes.
interesting because when you were talking about speaking at schools and stuff, I got some messages back saying, hey, these parents are telling us teachers about this former race car engineer. And she walks in with her, like, helmet, because I usually bring in my
Yeah.
helmet when I do my talks and stuff like that, of course, right? And or my leather jacket. And then people can kind of see that, there's hard
Yeah.
plastic in it and all this. But it's so rewarding when all of a sudden the teachers are reaching out saying, I'm still getting comments from the parents. Like,
Yeah.
you've blown these kids' minds open to saying
100%.
like, you can be an art honors and still be an engineer. You can be a singing, like you might love karaoke and still be an engineer. You could be an engineer and also do something else, like just that whole thing of let's get rid of the pigeonholedness and let's just all live our best multifaceted lives.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think that's great. And you're not wrong.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, you're not wrong. And I love being able to teach people as well. And that's what I do that as well in different spaces. But that's a conversation for another day, girl. I want to take you for lunch one of these days because I think you're so cool.
Oh, God love you. I would love that, Lisa.
Oh.
That would be great.
She's like, I'm writing it down. I know where we're going. So but I'm going to wrap us up because we are at an hour.
Excellent.
You are an amazing person. Thank you
God.
so much for being a part of Devil's Advocate Trades Edition. You've brought a lot of different wonderful spins to what you do. And I love that you've done motorbike racing and that you incorporate it into your teaching of advocacy and how people need to understand different elements of how things work. So I think that's great. And then the 2 books that you're doing and the good grief and what you went through. And thank you for saying what you did about people not understanding, the grief that you go through as a caretaker, because people don't.
Yeah.
They really don't. It's a different level. So thank you for bringing awareness to that.
You're very welcome.
I'm sure we'll have some questions at some point because this will end up going out on all my different channels. So I need some handles from you. So can you email me a couple of your handles, whether it's TikTok or Insta or Face or whatever, just email me some of your handles. I usually go through, most of my stuff goes through TikTok, YouTube, but you'll get the copies of the YouTubes. I'll make sure Michael sends them to me.
Very nice. Do you want those in an email or would you like those in the chat just here?
He'd probably say the chat, but I'm going to say send them to me by email just so that they're
okay.
Yeah. He says IG. I think he's got your.
Oh no,
IG.
that's me.
Oh, that's you. Oh no, there you go. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll email them to you as well. Yeah, so I play on Instagram a little bit. I'm just learning that, it's new, and then just my name on LinkedIn.
Well, we'll tag you on the LinkedIn one, so don't worry.
Nice.
Cousin Jessica Facebook. I love it. You're so cute.
It's so funny because people are like, so how do you pronounce cousin, or what background is that anyway?
Cousin.
And I have so much fun with it, as I imagine if you did the same, you would have the same amount of fun with it.
Yes. It's not wrong. It's not wrong. Okay, my dear, we'll just hang tight and we're going to wrap up and then we'll run away from each other. But thank you everybody for listening and being a part of this episode this week. I hope you guys will be back next week to listen to Kyle, who will be on, who's another one of our authors with Good Grief. But as you can see, I'm finding all of these like little diamonds in the rough. So yay me. Anyways, you guys all have a wonderful week and don't do anything crazy.